So I suppose back on that conversation, we've really looked at to, I suppose, when you pick your own team, kind of moulded around you and your business. I suppose what happens when you inherit a team in that aspect?
Yeah, look, if you've been around long enough, you'll always inherit a team. And I have to admit, I've had those conversations before with people managers, people leaders in my business where they say, I inherited this problem. And I say, yep, and this is not going to be the last time, because ultimately it changes, okay? So what a business needs now and what it doesn't need, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in or what customer you're with, team members will move on, managers will move on. And so when you do inherit a team, yes, on one hand you get to pick a team, but on the other hand, really getting to understand, it's the same thing when you're picking a team, what's important to us, what are our structures and what are we here to do? So for me, one of the examples I give is when I first joined MOQ Digital, I was invited to come in a particular role, and about a week before I was due to start, my CEO phoned me up and said, look, I've got a bit of a situation. I was wondering if you could look after another team for a while. I said, yeah, no problems. And he said, look, I know it's in managed services and you don't really do managed services, because I'd been in running a project management office before that. He said, but I'm sure you'll work it out. And so I had to come into this team and say, why are we really here? What are we here to do? And part of that was actually getting to the heart of what is it that we're here to do in the context of the whole business. And so for me, when you inherit a team, before you can actually work out who's a fit for what, you have to understand what is it that we're trying to achieve and what are we here to do. Because I have a principle about servant leadership, which is we're all, ever since I've been a people leader, I don't fix computers, I don't fix servers. My job is to make sure my team can do their job. And so I think that's a starting point for that conversation, is what are we really here to do, and how do I basically assess how I can help my team to do that. And along that way, sometimes you find out that the people are not really either equipped in some ways, they don't have the capacity or the capability, or they simply don't want it. And then that comes onto a different conversation. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, so the examples I had was more around inheriting a team that used to be my peers and then became part of my team, and working with them closely, finding out that I actually was missing a few things that they were actually doing really well, but I had my, let's say, my wrong glasses on, if you know what I mean. So working with them closely, actually showing appreciation when you see it, that helped a lot in changing the team as well. Making sure that what you would think first, that was the good performing portions of the team and the lesser ones, that actually they work better together, do a bit of a restructure, even sometimes that they have to work together. We went through a restructure recently in our IT department at Brisbane Airport, and what I've tried to do was to change the existing team structure and turn it 90 degrees, but at the same time create kind of sub-teams that no matter who you pick, if you pick two people, they would always be part of a team, whether it was on topic X or topic Y, to create that cohesion. What's the word? Cohesion. Yeah. And that actually worked out really well. And you can see that everybody kind of started work together, appreciate each other's work and life better as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's quite an interesting point, because structure is something that, you never want it to become the restriction, but you actually need to really look at what is it that the frameworks and the structures you're putting in place, how is it either allowing things to happen or not allowing things to happen. And so a lot of times in business, when we talk about restructures, it can be very much like what does that mean? Is that bad or is it good? Well, ultimately it's actually about constantly asking ourselves, is this still the best way? Is there a better way to do things? What do we need to tweak and adjust? And doing that in a way where you're taking people on the journey. So, whenever you make a change in your team, and that's where what we're really talking about here is team, right? So if we are leading a group, and this particular forum is very, very much focused on IT support services, right? So your team members are at the coalface dealing with your customers and trying to fix broken things or trying to implement technology, one or the other typically. And again, I caution it's important to know why you exist and what the purpose in the business is. For us, our managed services team in MOQ Digital, I say to people, yes, you're here to support our customers. But this is not necessarily just about fixing technology. This is about listening. It's about having empathy. It's about creating connection. It's about delivering value to another human being. Now, our particular tools of the trade are fixing computers. Now, if that means that it's because their mouse is broken or it's something really, really complicated, it's irrelevant. The point is you're here to add value, you're here to service your customers and look after them. So developing those, what we call core skills, and other people call soft skills, is, can I listen, do I understand, do I have empathy, all those kinds of things, because that's really what separates a good service from a great service. And one of the best compliments I've ever had is one of my team members. I remember a customer phoning me up and saying, your service person is so great, I don't even care if they fix my problem. Their service is amazing. And that's like the best compliment I've ever had from one of them, because their service was so great, they felt validated, because everyone's been in that place where something's not working, and the anxiety levels are huge. And so when you are in an IT service position, you actually have to create a connection with other human beings in order to service them.
Yeah, and at the same time, I think what I would like to do is give each individual enough responsibility, or almost all responsibility, to come up with what they think is the best way to do things. Because, and I'm 100% sure we agree on this one, they know better how to do that job than what we do. Yeah. And it's giving them trust. I always use the phrase, we trust and verify, but you give them trust in coming up with better solutions, and also listen to them. There's one example, it's not an IT example, but I'm Dutch myself, you might have guessed from the weird accent, but the Dutch railway system had a really low customer satisfaction rate. And a new CEO came in, and this is only a couple of years ago, and first of all listened, of course, to what was happening, and they made a change that they would change the way they would think about problems by going bottom up. That meant that rather than enforcing their employees to do things, they would listen to them and say, okay, so why are we not getting the rates that we're getting? And one example was that cleaning of the trains, it was always poorly rated. And what I used to do was, enforce them to make better rules, etc. And when they asked the cleaners, I said, the trains are never on time. So when we rock up, there's no train. And when we find the train, we got 5 minutes to clean them. And I said, so how do you solve this? And they said, you should have the trains on time. I said, okay, assume you don't have the trains on time. How would you solve it? And then the cleaners came up with a solution that, why are we not on the trains while it's running? So they put on a skeleton team for 2 people. That also looks nice, they clean, and they were the ones that could call the team saying, train XYZ is coming in Amsterdam station in 20 minutes, get your team ready. And that was one example where you listen to people, you include them in the whole process. And you won't forget, when you hear these things, you won't forget these things, because that applies to anything that you do, whether it's cleaning trains or whether you're servicing your customers.
So even just the smaller little touches can make a massive impact. Absolutely.
It probably leads to a really interesting conversation about what are the principles that your business runs by in terms of what leadership means. And I personally, and I think I'm lucky enough to work at a place that believes in this, that we do have a principle around servant leadership. So managers in our business only exist to make sure that their people can do their jobs. Leadership is about enabling of people. And it sounds very simple on the surface, but when you actually put that lens through of saying, what is it that we're here to do? How do we add value to our customers? And then creating the structures and the hierarchies and the management and leadership around that to make sure that you are doing both top, because you have to have top down. I mean, that is leadership. You need to have a strategy and a vision and where you're going, but you also have to have top down and bottom up. And so both of those things working together and continuing to bounce those up and down, I think is really important, I guess, to us.
No, it's the same here. I tell my team that I have, you do the work for me. I'm only doing a good job if you're doing a good job. No one goes to me and says, Dirk, you're a really great IT head of technology. It's about, no, your team has done this, and and they've implemented great things, that you just make me look good, and I want to do all I can for you to make me look good.
Yeah.
Satisfaction's more around the team, not just on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And all of these things, if we're really talking about, the theme of this around leadership and management, is that management by a series of rules and frameworks and boundaries is one way, but when you actually take that upper level and you talk about, you know, the values, the emotional intelligence of the people you hire, empowering, creating environments of trust, and understanding how to do that, it is harder work up front, but the outcome is much better because you end up with people who are engaged, they're committed, they believe they're doing something important for their team and for their customers, and so
and they help you.
Yeah.
I always look for help for my team, and they help me because they know if it's vice versa or if they make a mistake or anything, they are in a safe environment.
Yeah.
And it sounds that initially that difficult. Afterwards, it's a really easy life. When you have a whole team around you that helps you, helps you look good, helps you to get services, and everybody is happy doing this.
Yeah. And you know, the reality is when you do inherit a team, if we come full circle, sometimes you inherit a team and not everybody's on the bus and not everybody agrees and aligns in values. And the sooner that you can actually bring that up and have those hard conversations, you know, then you can start to work through and understand, you know, what's going on. Because you don't always...
And not just to identify those individuals you talk about, because it also affects the others. And the others are looking for leadership in that sense for you to solve that particular problem.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favourite sayings is what we permit persists. So if you allow certain behaviours, if you allow bad behaviours and you don't deal with it, everybody sees that, and that becomes the new accepted norm. And that's
quite often they don't like it.
No, absolutely. But it's like, well, if that's okay, then so that's where, you know, having hard conversations and be willing to deal with certain behaviours becomes absolutely critical in these roles, because one person who is not able to conform to the minimum accepted values, they then set that new boundary, and that becomes quite a challenge, right? And those are the realities of having hard conversations, and it's different to that whole safe environment where we make mistakes, because let's be honest, it's IT. Right, stuff's broken all the time, and sometimes when we're trying to fix one thing, we break something else. Right, that's the reality. But it's not in the doing; it's in the how we deal with.
Exactly.
It's the same thing as it's not get knocked down, it's how you get back up again. It's not what you do; it's how you deal with it. It's all these kinds of things in that behavioural side of the humanity of it. Because even the smartest tech in the room is going to make a mistake. It's can I put my hand up? Can I go, hey, I did this? How are we going to deal with it, and asking for help.
And as part of a team leader, my philosophy is always that we make a mistake, and Kel or you do something good. You praise in public, and if something's wrong as a team, you're going to fix this. And I totally agree with Kelly. It's not I don't care at all if you make a mistake. I only care how you deal with your mistakes, because I'm full of mistakes, and I'm surrounded by people, fortunately, that help me solve my mistakes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.